It's beer o'clock on Real Ale Craft Beer. I'm with Axel. How are we doing, Axel?
Hi Simon, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. I'm at ÜberQuell in Hamburg in Germany, and we are going to talk a little bit about Hamburg's beer history now. 500 years, over 500 years of beer. 1,000 years of beer history and over 500 breweries. So through this tunnel is a timeline of all of the main points of history from Hamburg. And Axel's going to walk us through and
okay, come on.
take us through.
So, the world famous Hamburg logo.
That's the beer logo.
Yeah. 9th century Hamburg has been established as a Hammerburg.
Right.
The Vikings burnt down even Hamburg a few times in the old days.
Really, did they?
Like a few places in England as well.
Yeah, oh yeah, they were monsters.
And around the 9th century, beer became a big topic already in Hamburg.
Where did it? Where did these origins come from? I mean, was it just a lot of homebrewers to begin with, or was it, you know?
Of course, it were homebrewers. They did it for not for commercial purposes, but I think the major factor around Hamburg was just the ability to grow barley and wheat and hops in the old days, and the access to water. Yeast was unknown in the old days.
Yeah.
There was just something around, and they did it in a way that other people from other villages and cities in the old days started enjoying beer from Hamburg.
Fantastic. And you built a dam.
Yeah, exactly.
Am I jumping too far in front with the dam, or is that somewhere
Dam
around
had
here?
been established obviously 300 years later.
Okay.
But the dam within the city is something very special. We call it the inner lake, the Binnenalster and the Außenalster. But the dam was built just to have enough mills around the water to be able to create and
Power.
and deliver the ingredients for the beer.
For the beer, it's incredible.
Yeah.
So we're moving down to the 1300s, and this is a really important point in the history, because this is where you started exporting Hamburg beer and making this place famous all around the world.
Exactly. And guess what kind of style it was in the old days?
My favourite style, Weiss beer. Yeah?
Weiss beer, can you imagine?
Oh, I love Weiss beer.
Sometimes we have historians from Bavaria up in Hamburg, and it's terrible for them to understand. They know about it, but they never talk about it because Bavaria is famous for Weiss beer. But we, the Hamburg brewers, invented Weiss beer in the old days, and it was an export runner. It was just a very successful style.
So the north of Germany, Hamburg, invented the beer style, the Weiss beer, and it was at this stage in the beer brewing world, was a much bigger powerhouse in the north of Germany than in the south, which is very famous of today.
Yeah.
So this is the message that Axel and others, we went to a museum yesterday, we've met a fantastic doctor talking about beer, and this is the message that Axel and others are trying to spread, is that actually no, we need to re-look at the history of beer in Germany and realise the importance of the north of Germany. Yeah. Fantastic. So 1300s, Weiss beer starts to be exported all over the world. And then we're going to get to, where would you say is the next important line?
Very important was the old Hansa, the Hansa time, like the organization of various cities, independent cities, called Hansa, and each city was more or less famous for certain products. Lüneburg, down south of Hamburg, was very famous for salt. Lübeck was the hub, the political hub of the Hansa, the coordinator, and Hamburg was the hub of beer.
Hamburg was the hub of beer. That's so cool. That is so cool. So we're going along nicely on the timeline.
Yeah.
And then we hit a point. We hit the peak of Hamburg breweries, which was 531 breweries in 1540. Can you believe that? Can you think of any other city in the world that had 531 breweries in its city at any one time? That's incredible.
It's incredible. If you see the old maps of Hamburg, you see that each brewery had to be registered.
Yeah.
You just couldn't come up with the idea of brewing beer. You
So
needed to go to authorities, you needed to apply for a license, and it was just completely an official and a very, very important business in the old days of Hamburg.
And this is how you got your 531, because it's written down in history.
Exactly.
Right, okay. And then there's a gap. There's a gap here from 1540 to 1801.
Yeah.
Now, this period in time, what I'd like to say at this point, 1540, everybody drank beer because apples were a lot smaller to make the apple juice. It wasn't really a thing to be able to produce apple juice. So cows were a lot smaller. So to produce lots of milk was a very difficult thing to do. So what else do you have? You have beer. The easiest producing thing at that time was beer.
Yeah.
But like the UK and like all around the world, what they didn't know was that they were making the water safe by boiling it. They were boiling the water and they were making the water safe. They were taking all of the bacteria out of the water. So at this stage, the children are drinking beer, the women are drinking beer, the men are drinking beer for medical kind of reasons, not to just drink the water and die. Everybody knew back then you drank the water, you're not going to be very well. So you drank beer, you were fine. But then we jump into this stage, this 1801 stage, where there's a big decline in the breweries.
Yeah,
and that's because, again...
They had been over-regulated on Hamburg.
Oh yes, I forgot that
New
bit, yeah.
laws giving the breweries only an allowance to brew at a certain days to make sure that the quality stays on a certain level. But the result was less breweries, less beer, and other cities were much better because they even invited brewers from Hamburg. They got the talent, the brain drain from Hamburg. And it went down, and alternative drinks like wine and coffee came up as well.
Again, you're boiling the water. With coffee, I'm not so sure with wine. I don't know. I have no interest in wine whatsoever. But coffee, yeah, you're boiling the water, so again, you're killing that bacteria, you're killing that. So that's a really important part. So the brain drain really happened here. This is where kind of Bavaria, and this is very important that we talk about the north being very important with beer. But Bavaria then takes over in the south as the beer capital of the world, or of Germany, should I say?
Yeah.
And it's stayed like that ever since.
Exactly.
Wow.
We had like a second boom of breweries starting around 1801, 2, because sailors brought in international styles like porter, stout, and pale ale. And the upcoming Hamburg breweries did porter, stout, and pale ale. They even brought over from England brewmasters. And around 1860 we had the first big trade shows, and the Bavarian breweries introduced themselves to the Nordic market.
But you guys didn't call it stout or porter, you called it Dunkel, didn't you? Would that be like
in certain areas, Dunkel, in Hamburg they call it porter and stout.
Oh, well, okay,
We've
brilliant.
seen all pictures and signage boards. Hamburg was always open and had a close relationship to England, and they just named it as it was. Yeah.
So the decline goes all the way down to where we have
World War One. Yeah.
World War One, and it's just we have the Holsten Brewery, and what was the other brewery? The Flemish.
There was a second one in a very old building, but it was more like a pub brewery, a brew pub.
A brew pub. So 2 breweries in the whole of Hamburg until you guys.
We started.
You guys come along.
More or less 2012 was a Schanzenhofer, was a Altes Mädchen, was a new brew pub concept with 60 different beers. And from 2012, the breweries in Hamburg started to grow again. We are now up to 18, and now we can call it, we have a brewing culture. It might be this, I would say, the third boom.
The third boom in beer?
Yes.
So
exactly.
now you have over 18 breweries now in Hamburg. That's a fantastic achievement from just a few years ago.
Yeah.
There was a very important beer blogger, not me, but years and years ago. His name is Hendrik Nost, and this was the first beer publication or beer blogger, if you like, in the world. 1580.
Yeah, we know from the old Egyptians about beer, but nobody ever wrote down recipes, nobody ever was describing ingredients. Nobody before traveled to various areas in Europe, and he was a traveler. He was a beer lover, a beer freak.
And he was writing about beer in 1580.
Yeah.
That's absolutely incredible.
It's one of the very last copies in the world.
Yeah, I understand you only have the key for that door. Now, one more thing before we finish. There's a couple of things I want to talk about because I made another video just half an hour ago. But when this building used to flood, this is the water line that used to hit throughout this building. So you can imagine it's knee high, over knee high, when this building used to flood, when the Elbe used to kind of flood in. Another thing I want to look at is Denmark, Denmark and Hamburg. And then you have this kind of like no man's land. And I was talking to you earlier on about the no man's land if you watch my McDonald's video. And this is where the Reeperbahn was, that famous street. Where was it a lawless state? Was it back then? Was it lawless? Was it kind of like? Is this why this existed?
Yes, more or less.
Yeah, and it still kind of carries on today. Not being lawless, but
the police was not allowed to touch any of the Danish ground.
Oh, right. Okay.
And if you did something wrong in Hamburg, you tried to run over to the Danish side because it was a different country, different place.
Ah, right. Okay. Axel, this has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so very much for this history. It's been absolutely fantastic, and let's go and get a beer, shall we?
Definitely.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you. Stone the Crows.